cancellation has caused a stir. There's been some back and forth. Was there ever any conversation about canceling the Georgia-South Carolina game?
I think everything was on the table, David. I think the big difference between the Gainesville scenario and Columbia scenario is, Gainesville is right in the middle. I'm sure they're going to have winds at maybe 40, 50, 60 mile an hour in the city of Gainesville. The difference is Columbia is relatively, they'll have some wind and some rain, but nothing of the magnitude that they're going to experience in Gainesville. So the two really aren't similar. They're very different. So the situations that I'm sure Jeremy was facing in Gainesville are different than Ray was experiencing in Columbia. But, yeah, I think everything was, if the security services were not being able to be provided up to the standards that South Carolina felt comfortable with, then I'm sure the decision would be different than the decision that was reached last night.
Greg, given the situation with the hurricane the way it is, what outcome did Georgia want for this game?
Well, we were throughout the discussions. I think everybody wanted to play the game because there's just not a way to really make it up. South Carolina's open next week, and we're open before the Florida game, so there weren't really any makeup days, and we knew that due to the city of Columbia being able to support it, we felt confident that the game could be played in Columbia, and the discussion was Saturday, Sunday, and the way it ended up was Sunday was the best day. So we're in agreement with everyone, and we're look forward to being in Columbia this week.
Greg, this is Murray Poole. If they give you an indication of what the conditions might be at the 2:30 game time?
Yeah, I think we're pretty clear. Sunny skies in the 70s, and really totally different than it would have been Saturday night, Murray. I think there was strong winds and 30% chance of rain Saturday night. So Sunday, according to all the reports, is going to be a beautiful day.
Hey, Greg, it's Seth Emerson. Go ahead.
Hopefully you guys can survive everything down there. Hope everything goes well.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg, it's Seth Emerson. Obviously, there were a lot of consultations, but ultimately, who makes the call on this?
The conference does. The commissioner does.
And yesterday, what's the kind of short version of why it took so long? Were you all literally watching the hurricane path, or what? What was going on?
South Carolina and their meteorological staff, things were changing by the hour, and we had discussions around lunchtime about what it looked like was happening, and as the day progressed, the storm was moving inward perhaps more than they had anticipated, which led to the Sunday decision as far as the game goes. So, yeah, it was, we had a conference call at about 8:15 last night, the final call last night to determine a course of action, and we all were in agreement that this was the right thing to do, and so we all moved forward.
Hey, Greg, Jason Butt with the Telegraph. At what point, I heard on the radio you said that the possibility of playing the game in Athens existed. At what point was that scrapped off the table, and how serious discussions were those to move the game to Athens?
Well, we made that overture early in the week when we knew that everyone needed to pay attention to Matthew. And I do think that possibly that could have been an option if the services for security and EMT could not have been provided. I think that was the situation in Gainesville. That's the situation in Columbia last year, that the services just could not be provided. So if it may have reached that level in the inability to provide those services, then perhaps we could have played here in Athens, but it never reached that point to where even though the governor had mentioned state services would not be provided, the local sheriff, as was reported in the papers and as was reinforced by the South Carolina staff, felt comfortable that with local resources could handle everything surrounding the game.
Greg, this is Anthony Dasher. You may have just answered my question, but during the talks or negotiations, however you want to describe it, was there one thing that South Carolina had to adhere to before you agreed to play the game on Sunday?
Well, the key thing was hotel rooms. We did not want to be in the position of having anything to do with displacing evacuees. We were all set with hotel rooms on Friday night, and we'd even worked with the hotel about releasing some rooms on Saturday to afford more flexibility for evacuees out of our block. But that was something that would not have been acceptable in any level as far as that. But South Carolina did come up with an option that our staff is over there this morning in Columbia, checking on a federal facility that's used by the judicial system on campus at South Carolina that is not a public facility. It's a private government facility that our staff's checking on this morning to see the viability of that, and South Carolina felt very comfortable that they could be able to accommodate a group of essential staff members and obviously student athletes in a manner that would be very similar to us staying in a public hotel.
And just a quick follow-up, what role did Kirby Smart have in all of this?
Well, he was engaged from day one. I mean, when this came up as something that we needed to watch early in the week, between Josh Lee and myself and Kirby, we stayed in constant communication, and Kirby participated in the conference call last night when the final decision was made, just to be able to hear exactly the dynamics involved and being able to listen to the whole situation that involved both presidents and athletic directors and conference officials and other support staff from each institution.
Greg, this is
Greg.
Charles.
You said that. Go ahead.
Just
Charles.
to follow up, make sure I understand that the plan is for the team to travel on Saturday and stay there on campus Saturday night if those accommodations do work out.
That is correct. We would just advance, really just move our whole plan up 24 hours. Instead of leaving today, we just leave tomorrow.
This is Dean Lucky. Is that a confirmed thing that are y'all definitely going to stay in that facility, Greg?
We're there checking it out this morning. Josh Lee and his staff it's a facility that's really never hosted the team, but they have obviously hosted numerous federal judicial officials there, and South Carolina, with their travel staff, felt comfortable that it would fit all the needs from team meeting room to team nutritional needs. And I realize it's 48 hours or 24 hours before we arrive, so absolutely they're going to and make sure that everything is acceptable on that standpoint.
Greg, David Pascal again. You mentioned offering Sanford Stadium early on. Were there any other discussed besides Williams-Brice and Sanford?
No, and I can't speak for South Carolina, but I'm not aware of any other discussions other than really in Columbia. I'm not really sure if Ray or his staff had checked on other facilities. You'd have to check with Ray on that.
Greg, this is Charles Odom again. Obviously, a Sunday college football game is extremely rare. Have you had any feedback from fans? Do you have a feel for how the Georgia turnout will be?
Not yet, Charles. I think people understand the dynamics. They understand that this is not something anyone wants to do. But in light of the schedule, in light of playing the game, we're able to do so. We felt like a 2:30 start. We all came in agreement that 2:30 was the best time to start the game. It allows us, we'll be back home maybe 10 o'clock that night, and at least the student athletes will be able to, have a good morning of sleep, and as opposed to maybe a 12 o'clock start, which means these kids are up early in the morning. So that's kind of how things landed there, Charles.
Thank you.
Greg,
Greg, Jake Rowe from Dogs 247 here. I wanted to ask you, what's the contingency plan if the judicial building doesn't work out? I mean, I know that's a little ahead of time there, but if that should not fit you guys, what's the next step?
Well, I'd just say there's one more contingency plan in place that we have, and I don't really want to say what that is, but again, I want to really stress it's not, even the contingency plan is not displacing anyone from their hotel rooms at all. That was off the table from day one, that the University of Georgia and South Carolina felt the same way, that this was not a situation that anyone was going to be asked to leave a room, even if they were fans in general. So there is a contingency plan that, I'm just probably waiting to hear from Josh here in a few minutes how things are working. But again, South Carolina felt very comfortable that this facility would be able to facilitate us.
Thank you.
Greg, it's Mark Weiser again. How did you guys determine that evacuees would not be affected by any way by an SEC football game being played in Columbia on Sunday?
Say that again, Mark.
How did you guys determine that evacuees would not be affected by an SEC football game being played in Columbia on Sunday?
Well, I think the hotel rooms were the direct reflection of that. In essence, if they're individuals that would have had to move out of a hotel room because now the game's on Sunday, nobody wanted any part of that. I mean, both schools totally understand the dynamics there, and again, that was not a consideration. But the safety for everyone involved was one. We never talked about finances. We never talked about money, of cost, of what it would cost in any of these options. It was strictly based on could the city of Columbia support this game from a safety standpoint, EMT standpoint, and be able to pull it off. And Ray and his staff were very comfortable after speaking with the sheriff that would be able to happen.
Greg, the governor evacuated 250,000 or 250,000 people from the coast, and most of them are headed that way. What's your understanding from the people you have on the ground up there now, what the effect of that is? Will there be a lot of extra people in the city and around the stadium?
I don't know. I hadn't heard back from Josh. I know they had a meeting this morning. I have not heard back, but I think they'll certainly, hotels, we have evacuees in Athens right now, in Atlanta, so I'm sure the city will be full, but I'm not so sure it'll be more full than it would be on a normal football game. Hotel rooms are hard to come by, even if there was Matthew was not in play, so I'm not really sure how that would affect things as far as overpopulation.
Greg, it's Jason Budd again. When you guys offered Stanford to South Carolina, did they want to play a wait-and-see approach, or were they adverse to the idea of giving up a home game?
No, I think everything was basically on the table because even early in the week, no one really knew where things were going to end up. I think everyone knew the danger zones, which caused a lot of options to be discussed, but it was always an option to utilize. And again, I think if the situation developed to where support could not be provided, I think that would have been a viable option.
Greg, this is Murray Poole again. Did you ever have an experience similar to this when you were Associate Athletic Director at Florida?
Murray, yeah, we had situations. That was sort of an ongoing situation in our office was monitoring storms. This is the height of the season. And in, I think, 2005, when both hurricanes crisscrossed the state, you're always planning on contingencies. And having lived through those two hurricanes and others, just knowing what tropical storm force winds can do to a city like Gainesville when it's blowing 40 or 50 are just devastating. And, to feel what people are going through with major hurricane force winds on the coast is just almost unimaginable. I'm sure you're seeing things probably, Murray, that you've never seen before.
Well, I'm over here in my hometown of Moultrie. We all had to evacuate the whole Glenn County did, so I made it in good shape.
Good. Well, it's just Mother Nature. There's nothing you can do about it, but you certainly can plan around it and make sure that everyone is safe as possible.
Greg, was there any, what did the football staff think about cutting into preparations for the next game? And also, did you guys need a waiver from the NCAA in terms of the 20-hour rule?
I'm sure that will be addressed. I mean, that was a concern, and we'll address that with the conference office moving forward. I don't anticipate any problems there. What was the first part, Mark?
Just about cutting into preparations for the next game.
No, I tell you what, Kirby and his staff have been fantastic. They understand the dynamics. They've tried to have a week of normal practice to where the young men can just focus on the task at hand and everything that goes into a student-athlete's life. But I think there did reach a point to where we really wanted some type of decision by the end of practice yesterday, because when these young men left at 6:30 after practice, no one knew anything. So that was unfortunate, but these young kids are resilient. The coaching staff has done a great job on focusing on what they can control, and Kirby's been great throughout the process. Okay.
One more question, anybody?
I got one. Jason Budd again. Greg, I was wondering if the athletics department has been involved in checking in on any of the families of the student athletes who do live in the affected areas of Hurricane Matthew.
Oh yeah, I feel assured that that's the case with any student athletes that are affected. Certainly, with offering any assistance we can as far as comfort or things that would be in need for those that are in these affected areas. I'm sure that our support